What if I told you that the man who built the world you live in was deliberately destroyed? Not forgotten, destroyed. His funding cut, his laboratory burned to the ground, his patents buried, his name erased from textbooks that taught his own discoveries under someone else's name. And then, on the night he died, before his body was cold, men arrived at his door and took everything he had left. Every notebook, every calculation, every page of research from the last decade of his life. Classified. Most of it has never been seen again. Now, I want you to sit with something before we go any further. This isn't a conspiracy theory. Every single thing I just told you is documented historical fact. The question isn't whether it happened, the question is why. And the answer to that question, the real answer, not the official one, is going to make you look at the world you live in very differently. Because the man they erased wasn't just an inventor. He had found something about the nature of reality itself, something about energy and frequency and the hidden architecture of the universe, that if it had reached the public, would have made certain people extraordinarily less powerful. His name was Nikola Tesla, and this is the story they spent a century hoping you'd never piece together. Understand what the world looked like before Tesla. No electrical grid, no radio, no motors, no transmission of power across distance. Darkness after sunset for most of humanity. Manual labor for everything that could not be done by animal or steam. A world operating at the speed of the 18th century despite being in the 19th. Now understand what the world looks like because of Tesla. Every light currently on in this room, Tesla. Every electric motor in every device you own, Tesla. The wireless signal your phone is using right now, Tesla. The radio frequency your car receives, Tesla. The alternating current powering every hospital, every school, every server farm running the internet, Tesla. He didn't contribute to the modern world. He is the modern world. And yet, ask 100 people to name the greatest inventor in history. You will hear Edison, you will hear Bell, you will hear Marconi. You will hear the names of men who either stole Tesla's work directly or built their reputations on discoveries Tesla made first and was denied credit for. That doesn't happen by accident. Reputations don't get erased by accident. Names don't disappear from history by accident. Something or someone made a decision. And understanding that decision is the first step toward understanding what Tesla had actually found. Tesla arrives in New York City with 4 cents in his pocket, a letter of introduction, and a head full of ideas that would have seemed impossible to anyone who heard them. He goes directly to Thomas Edison. Edison gives him a job, and for the next year, Tesla works 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, improving Edison's direct current systems. Edison reportedly promises him $50,000 if he succeeds. Tesla succeeds. He completely redesigns Edison's motors. He solves problems Edison's own engineers had spent years failing to solve. Then he asks for the $50,000. Edison laughs. He tells Tesla, "You don't understand American humor. No payment, no credit, no acknowledgement." Tesla resigns. And this is the moment that should have ended Tesla's story before it began. Instead, it revealed something about Edison that history has been careful not to emphasize. Edison was not a scientist. He was a businessman, a man who understood, with absolute clarity, that knowledge is only valuable if it can be controlled. And Tesla, who believed knowledge should belong to everyone, was the most dangerous kind of threat Edison had ever encountered. Not a competitor, a different philosophy. The war of currents that followed, Edison's direct current versus Tesla's alternating current, was never really about electricity. It was about who gets to decide what technology humanity has access to, and what it costs them to have it. Edison lost that war, but the people who think like Edison have been winning ever since. Enter J.P. Morgan, the most powerful banker in American history, a man who, at the height of his power, personally controlled more wealth than the United States government. Morgan had a simple philosophy: everything of value should generate revenue for the people who own it. energy, steel, railways, banking. He had already monopolized all of them. So when Tesla approached him with a vision, a tower on Long Island that would transmit electrical energy wirelessly through the Earth itself, free of charge, to anyone on the planet, Morgan understood immediately what Tesla did not. Free energy is not a product. You cannot meter it. You cannot bill for it. You cannot build a monopoly around it. Free energy is by definition the end of the energy business. Morgan funded the project, Wardenclyffe Tower, for long enough to understand it. Then he pulled the funding. Then he made sure no other investor in America would touch Tesla. He didn't need to destroy Tesla publicly. He just needed to make certain that Tesla could never build again. Which is exactly what happened. Wardenclyffe was never completed. The tower stood half-built for years, a monument to what almost was, before it was demolished in 1917 to pay Tesla's hotel debts. Tesla watched it come down from his window. He never fully recovered. He spent the next 26 years in smaller and smaller rooms, running out of money, running out of allies, still working, still receiving, as he would have said, right up until the morning they found him dead. January 7, 1943. Room 3327, the New Yorker Hotel. Tesla is found dead by a maid who had been instructed not to disturb him for several days. He had been dead for some time. Within hours, not days, hours, before any public announcement of his death, before his family had been properly notified, agents from the Office of Alien Property arrived at room 3327. They removed everything. Every document, every notebook, every loose page, every calculation from the final decade of his working life. The official explanation? Wartime security precaution. Tesla had been working on a directed energy weapon, what the press called a death ray, and the government needed to secure the research. That explanation has exactly one problem. Tesla was not an alien. He was an American citizen. The Office of Alien Property had no legal jurisdiction over his estate. They took it anyway. And most of what they took has never been returned. The FBI was involved. We know this because of FOIA requests filed decades later. We know they consulted with scientists at MIT to evaluate what they found. We know the evaluation concluded that Tesla's research was not as advanced as hoped, which raises an obvious question. Hoped by whom? Who was hoping Tesla had discovered something? And what were they planning to do with it if he had? Here is what the official history does not want to connect. In the final years of his life, Tesla was not primarily working on weapons. He was working on something far more fundamental. He believed, and had believed for decades, that the universe was not made of solid matter. That what we call reality is the surface expression of something invisible beneath it. A medium, a field, a fabric that fills all space and carries energy, information, and what he described as the intelligence of the cosmos itself. He called it the ether. Physics had officially abandoned the ether in 1905. Tesla never did. He wrote, "All perceptible matter comes from a primary substance, or tenuity beyond conception, filling all space, the akasha or luminiferous ether, which is acted upon by the life-giving prana, or creative force, calling into existence, in never-ending cycles, all things and phenomena." Read that again. The man who built the electrical grid of the modern world was describing the akasha, the cosmic field of memory and information that every ancient tradition had pointed toward for thousands of years, and connecting it to the creative force that organizes matter into the world we perceive. He wasn't being mystical. He was being precise. And the people who came for his papers on the night he died understood, at some level, that what he had been working toward was not a weapon. It was a key to a door they very much needed to remain locked. Here is what I want you to carry out of this episode. Tesla was not simply a misunderstood genius. He was a man whose specific vision of reality, free energy, universal resonance, the invisible architecture beneath matter, made him a direct threat to a system built on scarcity and control. And that system responded the way systems always respond to direct threats: It didn't argue with him. It didn't debate him. It waited until he had nothing left. No money, no allies, no platform, and then it sent men with briefcases to take the last thing he had: his work. Now here's the question this series is going to spend 12 episodes answering. What was in those papers? Not the weapon, the other thing, the thing he had been building toward for 60 years. The understanding of reality that connected ancient scripture, hidden mathematics, the geometry of the cosmos, and the nature of human consciousness into a single unified framework. In the next episode, we start with the numbers he left behind. 3, 6, 9, one sentence, no explanation, and a mathematical pattern that behaves so strangely that even the people who debunk it can't fully explain it away. The thread is in your hands now. What you do with it is up to you. But I'll warn you, once you start pulling, it doesn't stop.